It's a very right thing to do for a young man. I'll buy the shittiest camo, the shittiest boots. It's hard to find such a place, but it's hard for me to live without it. It's a good question. When you're on the verge of death in a situation like that. You want to know my opinion? Yes. You know, Kirill, we're in such a beautiful place today. There's so much wind, it's almost survival. So my question to you is about that. There's bushcrafting and there's survival. And there's also bushcraft knives and survivalist knives. So what they're calling survival, I don't really like the term, but nevertheless, what do you think about this pastime of bushcrafting or survival and the bushcrafting or survivalist knives? That's a good question. You know, I'll tell you, there's no such a thing as a survival knife. There's no survival knife at all. And in general, the difference of bushcrafting from survival is that it's very important. It's a principal understanding. You need to have it. Bushcrafting is the ability to live in the nature for some limited amount of time and to get pleasure from it, to feel unity with the nature. I've already told you that this is the closest place to Moscow that I can consider some wild nature. Because otherwise, closer than 150 kilometers to the city, it's hard to find such a place. And if I don't commune with the nature at least once in a fortnight, there's gonna be snow in the winter, grass, you know, starting a fire, going for lunch, for breakfast in the nature. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for me to live without it. That's bushcrafting? Yeah, that's bushcrafting. And survival, my friends, is a science of psychological training of a human being. When you're in a situation that is extreme, unfortunately, I were in such situations, thanks to diving. When you're in a situation that's on the verge of death, you're going to be thinking about anything, but not about your knife, honestly. So this is the training of survival. Bushcrafting is skills. When you're training your skills, chiseling, cutting wood, sewing, the understanding of nature, building, why you should do like this and not like that. But survival is training of your consciousness. Maybe unfortunately, maybe fortunately, I'm done with these military things, like hiking for as long as you can or wrestling with the nature, first of all. Like going against the current or with the current. Yeah, exactly. I think that it's something for young men. It's a very nice thing to do for a young man. I've also been through that. When you put a big backpack, when you go as far as you can, fighting with yourself. What does it matter what kind of knife you have? You just use the knife you have. The survival knife is the knife that is at hand. But survival is a psychological training for a human to never give up. Because giving up in this situation is the last thing you can do. So if my son goes in my path, I'll support him. I'll buy him the shittiest camo, the shittiest boots, the shittiest hat, and let the guy go and get this nice experience. This is what brings a human being. He will never give up if he does it. But it has nothing to do with bushcrafting. Don't you think that all these stories about survival, trying to do something like that, is like a game that has very little to do with real life, something like that happening in real life? The idea is that if bushcrafting is knowledge, the right attitude to nature, then survival is when people are making their own problems and start doing this kind of a masturbation. I have a friend, he has a 3-bedroom apartment, and in the middle of his living room there's a tent. And he just lives in the tent in the Moscow, in Yasinev. This guy also did that. The cameraman, he did the same thing. You know, it's very hard to associate with this guy, but it's pleasant. The guy has chosen his path. Why not? He has a knife on him all the time, a military knife, huge one. He's always wearing camo, to work, back from work. And he lives at home in his tent. Some people will think he's fucking crazy. Others will tell he's a happy person. So it's a subculture. Yeah, it's a subculture. And I like this subculture. I don't share it, I don't share their values, but it's pleasant to associate with this guy. They're interesting. They can tell you lots of interesting things. When they nearly survived, when they were making this adventure for themselves. Yeah, I kind of agree with you, because we're also doing bushcrafting like a game. Yeah, it's a game, definitely. If you're not playing, you're not living. Yeah, I agree, you've convinced me. So now the final question. Let's sum it up. What is a survival knife? Is it any knife you have on hand? Or the models that they're making, which are positioned as a survival knife? The knife created, with attention for survival, like what you're doing for bushcrafting. You want to know my opinion? Yeah, there's no such thing as a survival knife. Please explain. What is there to explain? How can you... if you have prepared for a situation, for survival, then there's no survival. Yeah, that has nothing to do with survival. You understand? It's a genius answer. When you're in a story of survival, you make a knife from a rock, from some shells, out of a tin can you find. That's the survival knife. Survival knife is the knife you make with your own hands. It's a nice thought, actually. That's the knife you make with your own hands from what you can find. That's what I call a survival knife. Otherwise, there's no such thing as a survival knife. It's a genius answer. If you have prepared for survival, it's not survival anymore. So I think we should stop here. Stop our small dialogue about these things. So guys, please take pleasure from life. If you want to play survival, you should. If you want to play bushcraft, you should. If you want to go fishing, go ahead. Just listen to the wind. It's not the northern wind, it's the western wind. It's like music. I'm not sure our microphones can catch it nicely. That's real bushcraft. That is what I call bushcraft. Have a good one, guys. See you in the forest, and of course see you online.
Well,